Good evening. I'd like to call to order and welcome everyone to this meeting of the Muscle Shoals City Board of Education meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. And the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. So you all have all been presented with that and for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Board, Dr. Holden has asked us to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a motion to do so?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Almond. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, I will call for vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it, so the agenda is approved, Dr. Holden.
All right, next item is correspondence. I do have a little correspondence. I'm going to borrow your book, Dr. Davis, here. Board members, you've all been given a copy of something called Electric City, The Lost History of Ford and Edison's American Utopia by Thomas Hager. These were a gift from Mr. Charles Anderson, and several of the superintendents from Cobbett County got together for lunch with him one day, and this is a book that's rich in Muscle Shoals history and Shoals area history, and he has given copies of this book for almost all of our employees, and we wanted you guys to have a copy of it as well. His thing was, he wants anybody who's teaching children or has access to kids to know the history of Muscle Shoals and the Shoals area, because he doesn't want it to be lost, obviously. So I just want to give you guys a copy of it. There's also another one called Muscle Shoals that comes along with it, so we'll get you a copy of that too. But in the coming days, I'll be getting these to the principals, who will be distributing these to our teachers especially. So we do want to publicly thank Mr. Anderson for that gift to you guys and our employees.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holden. We look forward to that. At this time, we have a special presentation from Highland Park.
All right, let's give Highland Park a hand. I think Dr. Pounder is going to come yodel for us now, and maybe tap dance. You notice they said next stop is England. I was over there the other day, and Janet Burnett was telling me that the day before the Queen died, they had, I guess, maybe started this unit, or at least were discussing the Queen, and you know, then she goes home and or that afternoon learns about all this, and she's thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to tell the kids about this tomorrow? You know, they've just learned about it yesterday, but I think they came in telling her about it, and so she had definitely piqued their interest, and that's such a neat thing that they do
That
there.
is
So
cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, good deal. Well, moving right along under business action items, the consent agenda. The board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed the item at a previous meeting. Consent agenda items will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled from the consent agenda and voted on separately. For the consent agenda tonight, we have the minutes from the August 22nd regular meeting, the minutes from the September 1st special call meeting, which was a budget hearing, bills and accounts for August, the August financial report, and those bank statements have been reconciled, and the FY 2023 5-year capital plan that you all heard a discussion on or participated in a discussion on during the work session. Does any board member wish to pull anything from the consent agenda and vote on it separately? Hearing none, Madam President, I recommend the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. Board, Dr. Holden has asked us to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion to do so?
Madam President, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Almond. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. There was a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion about the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Dr. Holden, they were all ayes, so the consent agenda items are approved.
All right, I'm ready to move to item B.
All right. This is the untabling of Board Policy 6.26, consideration the parent opt-in for mental health services. At our last meeting, the superintendent recommended the addition of Board Policy 6.26 related to mental health services. The board tabled this proposal in order to confer with stakeholder groups and wait for more guidance from the State Board of Education. Dr. Holden, do you have an update on this policy recommendation?
I do. After you all tabled the recommendation at the last meeting, I sent a draft to our AEA UniServe Director, Tracy Moore, and our MSEA President, Mr. Porter. Feedback from them, Ms. Moore said she thought it was fine. I've not had any other feedback from stakeholder groups outside of that. And I did want to make a point at the last state board meeting this past Thursday. The state board defined ongoing school counseling services as we thought they would. And so the proposed policy that you all received last month is in line with the definition that is approved by the state board now. So I feel good about the proposal that has been presented already, and I recommend moving forward tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holden. Board, you've heard the superintendent's update and his recommendation. So is there a motion to remove this policy proposal from the table?
Madam President, I make a motion that we remove proposed policy 6.26 related to mental health services from the table.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Is there any discussion about this? Okay, hearing none, I'll call to vote. All in favor of removing policy proposal 6.26 from the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So policy 6.26 has now been removed from the table and will now be considered. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call to vote. All in favor of adopting policy 6.26 related to mental health services, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? Hearing none, Dr. Holden, policy 6.26 has been approved.
All right, Madam President. Next, I recommend item C, consideration of amendment to board policy 4.10 related to political activity.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holden. The superintendent has recommended a change to board policy 4.10 related to political activity. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Dr. Rudolph, this change was recommended by the Alabama Association of School Boards. It strengthens and clarifies what constitutes prohibited political activity by employees while on duty and while on school grounds. And these changes are necessary because of a new law in Alabama that further restricts school systems in advocating for or against ballot measures. The vast majority of the language is already policy in the Muscle Shoals City Schools. We're just adding some language to our existing policy. I mean, employees are already prohibited from campaigning for political candidates, while they're on duty. But this recommendation just adds language to our existing policy.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holden, for that clarification. Is there any more discussion?
Madam President, I move that we table this recommendation to provide time for more consideration and to confer with our stakeholder groups.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Almond. Ms. Almond has moved now to table this recommendation. So is there a second to this motion?
I second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. All in favor of tabling the recommendation to change policy 4.10, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any opposed? Hearing none. Consideration of approval has been tabled until a future meeting. This will allow time to disseminate the proposal to stakeholder groups. Dr. Holden.
All right. Moving on to item D, I recommend consideration of a new board policy that would be 2.5.5 related to hybrid school board meetings due to illness.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. The superintendent has recommended the addition of board policy 2.5.5 related to hybrid meetings due to illness. Is there a motion for us to approve this recommendation?
I so move.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Almond. Is there any discussion among the board members about this?
I'll offer a quick explanation. The legislature tweaked the Open Meetings Act, allowing school boards the ability to have hybrid meetings. I know we did some of that during COVID, but that was a special circumstance, and the legislature did change the law. So there are certain circumstances, with exceptions, that school boards can do this now. Now, there are still some questions that AASB has about this. They've asked for an attorney general's opinion. But we've been advised to go ahead with the meet and confer process, which, where we table the proposal first and wait on the AG opinion on that. And so once we have that, we'll either move forward with approving this or we'll just let it die,
Okay.
leave it on the table or whatever. But I will say on a side note, the board does have to wait 45 days before it holds its first hybrid meeting after we eventually possibly pass this.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Board, is there any other discussion about this item? Okay. Is there a motion on the table?
Madam President, I move that we table this recommendation to provide time for more consideration and to confer with our stakeholder groups.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. So Mr. Wood has moved to table this recommendation. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. King. All in favor of tabling this recommendation to change policy 4.10, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dr. Holden, hearing none, the consideration of approval has been tabled until a future meeting. This will allow time to disseminate the proposal to stakeholder groups and wait on the Attorney General's opinion.
All right, sounds good. All right, now under item E, Dr. Rudolph, I recommend approval of the personnel report as presented.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holden. Board, the superintendent has asked us to approve the personnel report as presented. Is there a motion to do so?
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, I'm going to say Mr. King.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was first.
That was pretty good. There's a motion and a second to approve the personnel report. Is there any discussion about the personnel report as presented tonight? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor for approving the personnel report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, there are none, so the ayes have it, and the personnel report is approved. Dr. Holden.
All right, for the benefit of the audience, the personnel report consisted of the following under resignation or retirement. Melissa Barber, teacher at Webster Elementary, effective September the 16th. Melanie Shockley, 8th grade teacher at Muscle Shoals Middle School, retiring Last day to work will be December the 16th. Hogan Isbell, part-time temporary groundskeeper, effective immediately. Under employment, Ken Martin, system-wide custodian assigned to Muscle Shoals Middle School, effective September the 13th. And Lance Ullman, maintenance HVAC specialist, contingent upon background clearance, and effective date will be determined. Under other, Allison Weaver, 22-23 mentor supplement for a new teacher hired after school started. And then this is for information only, not for board action. Kelly Services staffing update. We do have a gentleman by the name of Genesis McWhirter that is now working with one of our special needs students at McBride.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holden. At this time, we will be moving into our budget hearing number 2, and we will ask Ms. Langley now to prepare to lead us into that process.
So this is the second budget hearing for the fiscal year 2023 budget. And it's designed to develop a tool to provide an overall plan for the use of our financial resources. This budget does cover October the 1st, 2022 to September the 30th of 2023. When we're preparing the budget, we do try to keep the mission statement in mind. There are several people that are involved in the budget, from Dr. Holden to Ms. Nichols, Dr. Templeton, Dr. Connor, anyone that's a director over any of our federal funds, CMP, and then they are the boots on the ground. They're going to the principals and getting their needs assessments. So everyone's involved in preparing for the budget. And I do definitely want to thank all of them, because without them, I don't know if I would have been able to get it completed this year. And I want to especially thank my staff, because they were kind of my hands during all of it since I was literally, Wimberly was typing my notes, and they were stapling. So they were a big help to me this year. Just a few things in your budget packet that if you need a good night's sleep, everything that I'm covering in here is or everything that's in here I'm covering in summary. So this is just a list of things that you can find in your budget packet. The glossary of terms, if there's something that I use, you can find the definition there. Fiscal year, again, is October the 1st, 2022 to September the 30th of 23. And our budget is due to the State Department by the 15th of this month. So it will hopefully get in the mail first thing in the morning. I will be discussing anticipated revenues from the state, federal, and local revenues. And in your packet, you will find P exhibits. One is the P1 exhibit that gives you detail of the overall revenues and expenditures. And then you will find P exhibits for each school. So any funds that are designated strictly for those particular schools gives you a detailed budget for that. Your B exhibit is your summary of the entire budget. And then you also have a copy of the salary schedule that you approved back in June. And finally, at the end of the packet is the response to reviews. So if there's anybody in the audience, or if you would like to fill one of those out, if you have comments, concerns, questions, you can fill that out and give it to me, or you can provide it to Dr. Holden or Ms. Woolfolk. Before we really get started in the revenues and expenditures, I like to cover the number of staff that we have and compare our last year's enrollment to where we stand today. So currently we have 332 employees. Last year, our 20-day count was 2,790 students, and as of today, it was 2,871. Of our 332 employees, you have 227 that are certified, and those teachers have almost 16 years of experience, and 88% of them hold a master's or higher. This year, we have locally funded units of 17.54. That is an increase of 1.5 units. And you can see the breakdown of the units that we earned from the State Department compared to what we earned last year. And also have those broken out by foundation units, state units, federal and local units. But the key number on this screen that I like to point out is the local units that the board is covering, and that's 17.5 units.
I think in the last hearing too, you mentioned why there was an increase.
Yes.
Primarily, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of you.
No, that's fine, because I did forget that, but it is primarily due to the pre-K And I must have thought I turned my timers off, sorry. But it is primarily due to the pre-K because we did add 4 teaching units and 5 auxiliary teachers, as well as a bookkeeper, a director, and a half-time custodian and CMP worker.
And even with that increase, you can see that she named a lot more than 1.5 people. So with the increase in funding, even though we had an actual increase in the number of people, it only increased our overall locally funded units by 1.5.
This is just our trend from 2018 to current of our number of employees, or number of earned units, I apologize, earned units, and our total admissions, our enrollment, average daily membership. So as you can see, as our numbers with students are rising, so do our number of units rise. And if they fall, then our units decrease as well. We have 2 types of funds. That's governmental and fiduciary. Governmental is divided up into general, special, debt service, and capital projects. General is our primary operating fund, with our special revenue being our federal programs and child nutrition programs. Debt service is long-term debt, and capital projects is our funds that we use for renovations, constructions, the HVACs that Mr. Pearson was discussing during the work session. And those fiduciary funds, they're held at the school level. Our overall revenue source is going to be $39.5 million. Breaking that out, 53% of state at almost $21 million, 4.3 federal at 11%, 13.2 local revenues, and that's at 33%. And I know the audience can't see this, but this is the P exhibit that I was referring to, and you can find that in your packet on pages 21 and 22. That does give you the detailed budget. It gives you every funding source that we're receiving revenues from, and then it tells you the expenditures on page 22. And as you may or may not can see, but total revenues there are $38.5 million, but there's also some other revenues, other funding sources that we have to include in that make up the almost $40 million budget. Our main funding source is the foundation program, and that is the funding mechanism for K through 12. That's the funds that we're receiving for our teaching units, what they call other current expenditures, which we usually try to cover our support staff, whether it be bookkeepers, secretaries, janitorial staff. We try to cover those out of the foundation program. The funds that we received are based on the 20-day count after Labor Day. There's that date you were talking about. And for fiscal year 23, our ADM was 2,789.4. That was an increase of almost 18 students. And with our current enrollment this year, or as of today, 2,871. That's the number if it will either increase or decrease by that 20-day count. And I believe our 20-day count is October, is it 4th? Somewhere in that first week of October.
Probably about right.
So we'll be looking at that number to try to determine what the funding will be for 24. Our local taxes at 10 mills of district ad valorem for Muscle Shoals, that's $2,444,780. And that equates to almost 27 teaching units. Our local match for capital purchases this year is almost $129,000. This is just a listing of the federal revenues that we will be receiving. This is not including the relief monies that we've received since 2020. But as you can see, IDA preschool, the Career Tech, Title I, Title II, and Title IV. I do want to bring attention to Title III. We'll be getting $7,343. That we will be joining a consortium with Florence City, also Coleman City, and Lawrence County. We did not qualify to be a single agent to receive the funds for this, so we had to join into a consortium. In order to receive that, we would have had an allocation of $10,000 or more. And this is a listing of the federal relief funds that we did receive and the dates that we have to have those spent by. I have exhausted the gear funds as of as of August. I think when I presented my first budget hearing, I wasn't sure if we had, but we did exhaust it, so no more gear money. Then we have our state reserve, ARPA state reserve, and our ESSER 3 that has to be expended by 2024. And our ARPA IDEA preschool, and ESSER 2 and ESSER 2 state reserve will have to be exhausted by 2023. Any funds that we were paying or any expenditures we had out of gear will be shifted to ESSER 2. And if funds are not enough to cover the expenditures that were in ESSER 2, they will go into ESSER 3, which the ESSER 3 we had about $2 million of funds to spend for that. And we've not spent any expenditures in ESSER 3. So your interventionists, your reading coaches, and some professional development will be paid out of those. Is there anything else, Dr. Holden, you'd
No,
like
I
to
was
add
just
on
going to
that?
say that, it looks like we haven't spent quite a bit of money of ESSER, but it is definitely allocated. It's budgeted for the academic recovery plan that we put into place last year. And so hopefully that'll be able to carry us to continue having those people in those roles, providing intervention and that sort of thing through 2024. At least that's our hope.
Yes. Our ad valorem taxes, we have 20 mil of ad valorem. You can see we have our regular countywide at 4 mils, regular district at 8.5, and special district 7.5. You can see the last date of the collections. Although that is the last date we can collect funds from those ad valorem, you need to take steps the year prior for a vote for those funds to continue to be coming into the system. And I've estimated $5.4 million coming in from those revenue streams. Other appropriation and tax revenues, the county, the auto, the alcohol, the city council appropriation, TVA, and business privilege, I've estimated 2.5. In the first budget hearing, I did point out the city council appropriation because their board or their council did approve the 8% increase, so of the sales and the use tax. So I'm estimating that we may get about $250,000 more from that, just based off where we're at today.
And that's very significant because when they were very conservative when they communicated with me what they thought this would amount to, and it was less than $100,000. And if her projection is correct, it's going to be more than double what they thought it would be. So we're very appreciative. So if you get a chance to thank the mayor, thank the council, this is going to be much needed funding the city that we haven't seen since the 80s.
Big help.
Mm-hmm.
And that also includes that $200,000, that one-time appropriation that we received from them. That will continue as well. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2023 are $39 million. You can see that 53% make up instructional services. Now, instructional services can be your teachers. It can be someone that we bring in for professional development. It's not just strictly salary and benefits. I do like to cover just the general fund because that's our main spending pot, and just kind of give you an idea of what the percentage is of our expenditures. Again, 59% of instructional services and 17% is instructional support. That includes salary and benefits. That includes bringing people in to provide instructional services. And as well as like operations and maintenance. It says 11%, but that includes our maintenance department salary and benefits as well. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where we lie with our expenditures. Salary and benefits for 2022 were just above $23 million. For 2023, I've projected that it will be almost $25 million. CMP pass-through is included in that personnel cost, and that's because we are required, if they fall below a 1-month operating balance, to transfer funds to help offset their salary and benefits. So it's been calculated that we'll transfer almost $750,000 for CMP salary and benefits to the CMP program, giving us a total of almost $26 million. And that is 85% of the total general fund budget. And when I say general fund budget, I'm talking about anything that's foundation, state, the local general fund monies. That is making up 85% of your budget. First budget hearing, I did not have this completed for you, but the last time we received a snapshot from AASB was in 2021, but it was based off of 2020 numbers. So you can see that we fell, we're 110, ranked 110 in state per pupil expenditures, and 130 with federal, and 33 with local per pupil expenditures. But overall, we ranked 94. So for 2021, those are, again, estimated numbers because we don't have those final numbers from AASB yet. So you can see how much we've spent per pupil on state, almost $7,600 per student. For federal, almost $2,000, and local was $2,200. But with all resources, almost $12,000 per pupil. I have estimated for 2023 that we will spend almost $8,000 per pupil with state funds, almost $16,000 with federal, and $38,000 with local funds, for a total of all revenue sources, $13,000 per student. And your B exhibit is in the back of your packet. I believe it's on page 71, but that gives you the summary of all your revenues and all your expenditures. I'm gonna just spend a little time on debt service. I did speak on this at our first budget hearing, but we have 3 forms of debt. And the first one is the warrant bond that was issued in 2020. It was originally issued in 2013. But when Dr. Lindsay was still here, we refinanced that or reissued the bond. Our payments are $617,000 for this upcoming year. And the maturity date on that is in June of 2038. Current interest rate is 3%. The QSAB, I'm happy to say that that's going to be coming up for maturity in 2025. Although it's not a whole lot of money, it's still money that we can put back into our capital monies because it is leveraged capital funds that we can't get our hands on to work on those HVACs. So, but anyway, our interest payment on that is $31,000. They do withhold some funds to make that principal payment, so it's a total of about $90,000 that we spend on that QSAB. The First Metro loan, really hope that when we close out our books for 2022, we'll be able to either pay that off or pay a good chunk of that off. But the maturity date on that is 2041. And you can see our principal payment and our interest payments there. The loan was originally for $1 million to assist with the pre-K purchase, to do renovations, and to purchase the land and the church.
We did the loan primarily so that we would not exhaust funds, you know, in case we had some kind of catastrophic event or something like that we needed funds readily available. So now that we've pretty much completed the renovation, hopefully we'll be in a position to either pay that off or make a big chunk out of it.
Up to
23.
Yes.
Okay.
The capital plan, Mr. Pearson did present to you a 5-year capital plan. Our allocation for those funds is $844,000, but we do have 2 bonds that are leveraged against that we have to make payments on. And we do flex about $100,000. That's just kind of been an ongoing thing even before I was here. But since I've been here, I've not had to use the $100,000 for utilities, but it's a good cushion to have in case something does happen and we can't make those utility payments with our general funds. That does leave us a remaining capital amount of $245,000. You saw that we had 7 HVACs that we need to address over the next couple of years, so that's probably not going to put a dent. But we do have, thankfully, because of the bond that the state issued, we have been able to accrue those funds each year. So we do have some carryover money, and it's about $733,000. So that gives us about $980,000 that we will have at our disposal to address those capital needs, to address those HVACs. So depending on what the engineer firm tells us will depend on how many of those we can address and if you want to exhaust those funds or not. And I didn't put this slide in here, but the PSCA bond that the state did issue 2 years ago, can't believe it's been 2 years ago. We have 3 years to spend those funds, but they are so far behind that I don't have a true number to give you as to what we have left to spend. I received a payment that they made on an invoice that I sent them back in October and November, and they paid it in January, and I'm just now getting the notice that they made that payment. So they're really far behind with all the PSCA invoices that are coming their way. So
It was originally 3.2 million, something
Yes.
like that.
yes. Just a few budget facts. The classroom instructional funds this year, the student materials went from $700 to $900. Technology stayed at $500. Library enhancement stayed at $157.72, as did the professional development at $100. And textbooks, and I still will not understand how you can buy a textbook for $75, but it is still at $75. Funds that we transfer to the local schools, and we try to do that as close to November the 1st as we can, because the state says they have to have their money by November the 1st. That's the academic funds, allocations to the teachers, the $900, $500, $157, and the help in school tags. So when you buy a tag, then that money goes to, and you designate a school, that money goes directly to the schools. Your total revenues, again, are almost $39 million, with total expenditures being $39 million. The fund balance as of August financials was 7.5. General fund salary and benefits, 85% of your budget. I'm estimating a 1-month operating cost of $2.5 million and projecting a 2.96 month operating balance. Financial accountability, this is something else the state requires us to present to you and the public. We do have an independent CPA firm that audits our financials every year. We do provide you monthly financial statements and check registers, and you can find those on our website. And in December, we upload the annual accountability reports. And as of today, I had no correspondence from the public or you
Okay,
regarding our budget hearing one. But if there are any comments that you would like to make, again, you can fill out the response to review form and give it to myself, Dr. Holden. My email address and phone number are up there. You can feel free to give me a call. And
Thank
if you
you
have
so-
any questions.
well, thank you so much, Ms. Langley, and hats off also to your staff who helped you through this with your injury. So thank you so much for looking out for our financial stability. Something that's very important to us. It's one of our major roles, and we count on you and your staff. So thank you very much for that. Have all board members have an opportunity to comment or ask questions? Anybody have anything? Okay. Does any member in the audience right now wish to make a comment? It's not a time for questions, but does anybody want to make a comment? I don't believe anybody does, Dr. Holden.
All right.
So hearing none, we're going to move on to superintendent's recommendation.
Dr. Rudolph, I recommend the board approve FY23 budget as presented by Ms. Langley.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. Board, Dr. Holden has asked us to approve this budget FY23 as presented. Is there a motion to do so?
Madam President, I move we approve the budget as presented.
Thank you, Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm
Got 2
gonna
seconds.
give it to Ms. Allman, okay? All right, thank you, Ms. Allman. So there is a motion and a second, and I know we've already asked, but just So just to clarify, is there any further discussion about budget FY23? None. Hearing none, I'm going to call for vote. All those in favor of approving FY23 as presented, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, they're all ayes, Dr. Holden. So budget FY23 is now approved.
All right, thank you very much. Last item that I have, Dr. Rudolph, is just a brief superintendent's report. First, I want to congratulate our board members for being recognized by the Alabama Association of School Boards, one of only 4 districts in District 8, for a commitment to leadership development. The board will be recognized tomorrow night at our fall meeting in Decatur. And these 4 systems are being recognized. They had 60% or more of their members attend at least 3 AASB conferences, and all of their members met the state mandated training requirements by the end of the year. June 30th marked the end of the year. So congratulations to you guys for that. Thank you for your commitment to continuing to develop yourselves as board members. Also, the Muscle Shoals Education Foundation has a fundraising event coming up on Tuesday, October the 4th. The foundation will host a night of laughter at Shoals Theater. I think we all need a little bit of that. Tickets are $30. Seats are reserved. Tickets on sale now. They have 3 comedians as well as our dance teams are going to perform. So it ought to be a good night. Hope they do well with it. I do want to ask you to mark your calendars for Thursday, October the 6th. This will be the official ribbon cutting for the Early Learning Center, our new pre-K on 6th Street. That'll be at 10 a.m. with an open house. That evening, there'll be a open house from 6 to 7:30. At 10 o'clock is the ribbon cutting. Shoals Chamber of Commerce is helping us coordinate that, and we're going to hopefully have some folks from the state here through first class pre-K, and maybe some of our other political leaders will be here as well. So we're looking forward to that. Hope you'll make it. Lastly, I want to congratulate Coach Scott Baisden for securing his 200th win as a head football coach this past Friday night, and that's quite an accomplishment for a high school coach. And so I've got a resolution here that I'm going to read tonight and present it to him at a later date. But it says this: whereas Coach Scott Baisden has served as the head coach of the Muscle Shoals Trojans football team since 2008, and whereas under Coach Baisden's leadership, the Trojans have consistently competed at the highest levels, and whereas under his guidance, countless student athletes have graduated from Muscle Shoals High School and other places and moved on to achieve their college and professional dreams of playing football at the next level, and whereas the overall athletic programs of the Muscle Shoals City Schools have prospered under his leadership as athletic director, and whereas on September the 9th, 2022, Coach Scott Baisden secured his 200th career win as a head football coach when the Muscle Shoals Trojans defeated the Athens Golden Eagles by a score of 28-20. And whereas this achievement places Coach Baisden in an elite group of only 15 active high school coaches in Alabama today to win 200 football games. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Muscle Shoals Board of Education wishes to express its congratulations to Coach Baisden, as well as his wife Millie and their sons Walker, Bentley, and Bryant on this outstanding professional achievement. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be entered into the minutes of the Muscle Shoals Board of Education, and that a copy be presented to Coach Scott Baisden. And I look forward to being able to present that to him. So thank you very much. Dr. Rudolph, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holden. Does any board member have any response they'd like to make to the superintendent's remarks or anything else? Okay. Hearing none, board, we have completed the agenda set before us. It was a long one, but we did it. And so I now pronounce this meeting adjourned.